I'm awfully glad you're here today because I do have a story for you, one of my favorites. It's a personal story, one that I really like to tell. Do you like thrift shops? I love thrift shops. I discovered thrift shops years and years and years and years ago, and I look for them wherever I go. I have favorites in town, and then I look for them when I'm traveling. Do you do that? You never know what kind of a surprise you'll find for yourself. I remember once I was in New Orleans, and I went to a Southern mansion. Once it was just that, but now it was sort of down on its luck, and it was a thrift shop. And when I walked in, there I saw them across the room as soon as I walked in, a pair of black patent leather buttoned-up shoes. I rushed right over and took them down off the shelf. Well, they were a size 6, much too small for me, but I bought them anyway. You know why? They reminded me of my grandmother. She used to tell me stories of how hard it had been to button hers up. And now I had the shoes and even a button hook. In that very same store, I put my hand in a basket and came up with some trinkets. And when I looked, there was a little khaki-colored pill. I pulled it open, and a teeny tiny rosary fell out. They had issued those to the servicemen, the Catholic servicemen during World War II. My daddy had had one of those. I carried it in my pocket for a long time. But my favorite thrift shop is the La Tienda thrift shop in Fresno, California, because that's where I bought my wedding dress. And it didn't matter to me, not one bit, that I had already been married 23 years. I came in, it was a little 2-story Cape Cod, and I walked up the steps to the 2nd floor. As I came to the top and turned, there it was, hanging on the wall right in front of me, a white satin wedding dress. Leg of mutton sleeves with deep lace collars. I could see that it had a high lace neck, and even though it was tucked up and pinned in the back, I could see that dress had a train. I walked over and I ran my hand over the fabric. Heavy satin. 1920s maybe, heavy satin fabric. This was the dress I should have worn when I got married. This was the dress I would have wanted to wear when I got married. But I got married in a borrowed dress. When Jim and I went down the aisle at Assumption Catholic Church in Charlotte, North Carolina, I came out of that church wearing a borrowed dress. My mother had eloped. I didn't think about this, but just a half a second. I looked at the tag, $25. This was a steal. I took it down off the wall and took it downstairs. I bought it right on the spot. Now, that night, back at our hotel in Fresno, I was folding it up as small as I could. A white wedding dress with a 6-foot train is a pretty big item. And I had rolled it up as small as I could get it, and I was pushing it into the suitcase when Jim was standing there looking at me, perplexed. What is this? Don't worry, don't worry. I have a plan. What plan? This is not for me. This is for our daughters, silly. Now, you see, our daughters, we had 2, were 18 and 19 years old, just the age that I had been when I got married. I would get this dress. It would be just like getting your grandmother's dress. I could pass it down to them, just like I would have done if I had worn my grandmother's dress. We had a chance. We had a chance to close up this history. Jim heard that story and backed away, but he didn't say anything. And I continued to push and push until I got it into the suitcase and zipped it up. When we got home, I took it into their bedroom and shook it out carefully. They weren't home. They were in college. And I shook it out carefully and hung it in the closet. The afternoon that they came home for Thanksgiving, I was down in my studio in the basement, but I heard them. I could hear them through the heater pipes. And I came running upstairs as fast as I could before they got any ideas, because I had heard them say, "What's this? What's this?" I burst into the room, "Mom, what is this? Where did that come from?" Oh, it was the luckiest day. It was so lucky you're not going to believe your good luck. I bought that in Fresno. I bought it at the La Tienda thrift shop. It's for you to get married in. Just like it was your grandmother's dress. They looked at each other, and just in the same breath, they looked back at me and said, "No way, never." I have to tell you, I was hurt. I was. I didn't understand this attitude. But they were pretty definite, and I took it out of the closet, took it downstairs to my studio, wrapped it in plastic, and I hung it on the wall for safekeeping. And it hung there for 10 years, like money in the bank, until Robin came home, newly engaged. Newly engaged. She came here. She was living in Los Angeles. She came back to discuss her wedding plans with me, that we could work everything out. And I was very careful. I bided my time. I didn't want to rush it. But when I thought the moment was right, I brought the wedding dress up from my studio, held it up. I had shook it out. The wrinkles were cleaned. And as she saw me come upstairs, she turned, "Mom, you haven't still got that thing." Now, Robin, don't close your mind to this too quickly. Just give it a fair chance. Come over, feel this fabric. Feel it. How thick and heavy, and it's beautiful. Just take a look at it. Well, after a lot of wheedling, she slipped it over her head, and it fell down around her. I did up that line of buttons in the back. She was standing in front of a full-length mirror. I held up her hair so she could see how pretty it looked, how pretty her neck looked with the lace collar up and her hair held up. I saw her reach down and rub her hand down the skirt. I had hope in my heart. She's weakening, I thought. She's weakening. But after a few minutes, she looked and, Mom, I'm sorry. Mom, I'm really sorry. But I just can't wear a dress that you bought at the La Tienda thrift shop in Fresno. You're sure? You're absolutely sure? Mom, I can't wear that dress. Very well. I helped her take it off. I took it back down in the basement into my studio, and I hung it back up. I came back upstairs, and she said, Mom, I'll get my own dress. Good, fine, do that. Go back to Los Angeles, get your dress. Well, when she got back to Los Angeles, she laid out a county map, city of Los Angeles and its environs, and she drew a big circle. And for the next weeks, she went to every shop inside that circle that had the name bride, dress, wedding dress, anything that suggested it sold bride's clothing. And she went to every one of those shops, but she couldn't find anything. And it was getting very discouraging until one day she called me. Mom, I found it. I found it. Her voice was just shaking. She was so excited. What'd you find? My wedding dress. Oh. Where'd you find it? Well, let me tell you, I was driving over to Hollywood, down to Hollywood Boulevard to see a client. And I saw this dress in a flower shop window. It's all chiffon and looks like Ginger Rogers. And I turned around and came back and parked, and I went up to the window, and it was gorgeous. There was a sign in the window. The dress was part of a display, and it said, Anita Batchefer, Bridal Couture, and it had her studio name and number. Bridal Couture, huh? I went to see Anita Batchefer. She brought that dress to her studio, and when I went there, she slipped it over my head, and you would have thought, Mom, you would have thought she had made it for me. It was wonderful, except when I wrote the check. But when I wrote that check, I thought of you, Mom. You thought of me. Well, yeah, it's an investment. It's an investment for my daughters. That's a good investment, Robin. Good. Well, when she came back and was married at Blessed Sacrament, she walked down the aisle on Jim's arm, surrounded by swirling white chiffon. She looked beautiful. And I stood back and I looked at her and I thought, look at that. She held out. Her plan is working. But now we know about plans, don't we? Life, plans. Robin still lives in California. She has 3 wonderful children. 3 beautiful, wonderful children, our grandsons. 3 boys that do not care that there is a Ginger Rogers wedding dress in a hermetically sealed box in their attic waiting for them. You know what I think? I think the day's going to come when Robin's going to take down that box, and maybe she's going to sell that dress, and it might even be at the La Tienda thrift shop in Fresno, California. Thanks for coming. Come back next time for another story.